Welcome everyone joining us on this live and all across our social media platforms. Thank you so much for joining the last day of this wonderful, inspiring Inspire Ed conference. My name is Abhik. I was a 2009 Teach for India Fellow, and I currently serve as their Marketing and Communications Director. I'm so thrilled that on the last day of this wonderful conference, which we hope has sparked many ideas on how a reimagined world, country, and education can look like. We're really thrilled to have Wendy Kopp, the CEO of Teach for All and the founder of Teach for America, join us this evening and help us understand what it truly means to act together, both locally and globally, to ensure that we're on the right track to a world where all children can get an excellent education. Thank you so much for joining us, Wendy. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really as well as possible and sending lots of good wishes to everyone across the Teach for India community.
Thank you. And before we start, Wendy, what we'd love for you to, inspire us with before we begin is tell us a little story or an inspiration or an anecdote which has helped you over the past 6 months. And I think this will really help our community and our viewers keep their determination and sense of purpose up as we go through these unprecedented times.
It's so hard to think of just one. In all honesty, I feel like what's kept me going through all of this is just seeing so many examples of teachers and alumni educators and students and others just leaning in to help ensure their kids keep learning. I think about this teacher, Emmanuel Kamuli from Teach for Uganda, who made a very challenging decision to stay in the community, the remote rural community where he was teaching, where there's no technology at all, like no one has a phone. And he went to the mayor and said, will you help everyone know I'm here? And if they come to pick up a learning pack every day and bring it back every day, I'm here to teach them. And he's kept learning going for dozens of kids in that community. I think about the teacher Rabia Chaudhry, who, figured out a way to ensure that each of her kids had access to a phone and data, and essentially created for her 100 girls who she taught and teaches in Pakistan a way to literally create a WhatsApp school where she thinks her kids are learning more than they were before, because this WhatsApp school enables you to differentiate for the needs of the kids, and it enables the kids to, I could just go on and on and on about all the different examples. The Teach for India teachers have been so inspiring in what they did to lean in and make sure the basic needs of their kids and families were met, and now to try to ensure that they all have access to a device to actually keep learning in a high quality way. And then the last thing I'll just say is the extent to which I've just seen people support each other across borders and inspire each other and learn from each other has just it's been incredible. Like I think about, right before schools were going to shut down in Nigeria, the alumni of Teach for Nigeria, or teaching fellows actually went to the state government and said, can we have access to the radio station? Because it's the only way we'll be able to reach kids once schools shut down. And, the alumni of Enseña Chile saw that story because Teach for All communicated it in some way and said, that's it. And then they formed this group of 60 Enseña Chile alumni who have now taken over 200 plus radio stations in Chile, for the first time able to reach 3,000 communities in the very remote parts of Chile, to reach students and families. And they're saying they'll never go back. And now there's a whole community of practice across Teach for All of all the people who are the radio station, lesson plan providers who are all thinking together about how do we actually do this well. I mean, I could keep you going forever, but it's just like the degree to which people have leaned in to support their students and even to train other teachers. I mean, thousands of other teachers outside of our network are being trained by teachers and alumni from our network. I mean, literally 12,000 teachers in Africa and thousands in Peru and many others. So I just think about the impact that you all and your colleagues across the network are having in this era. And that's really what has kept me going.
That's incredible. Thank you for taking us on a little bit of a tour around the world. And it's so true. There's so much that connects us more than divides us. Wendy, tell us, in your experience of founding Teach for America and then leading Teach for All in the 56 partner network countries, what have you learned and understood and experienced about collective action towards solving this very gritty and complex problem of education inequity?
I've learned so much. I mean, I think back to where I was in my thinking when I first started in this journey in the early years. I mean, and I've been at this now for 30 some years, but initially I remember hearing from the people who, for example, were saying, we need to advocate for policy change. And I was thinking, from our experience in the very early days of Teach for America, you can change whatever policies you want. From what we're seeing, we need to just focus on more amazing teachers and school leaders and people at the district level who know how to implement anything. And as we progressed, we realized that's true, but those people within the system can move so much faster when there are political leaders who are also advocating for the changes we need. And then a few years later, so we became like completely obsessed with like educators at every level of the education system and political leaders. And then we realized those people in policy and advocacy couldn't actually sustain themselves without a tremendous amount of community support. So then we realized, actually, this is all about fostering the kind of student leadership and parent leadership and advocacy. And then you'd run into, it's just like this never ending thing where you start realizing, actually, we need a lot of leadership around the whole ecosystem if we're going to get where we're trying to go. But then we realized in some communities, and I think this is true not only across now, of course, the US communities where Teach for America is working, but I'm seeing it all around the world where, there are many communities where there are many leaders taking these issues on from all these different directions, but where they're not necessarily working together. So you have a lot of individual leadership, but you don't truly have collective leadership. And what I've seen is that where you see the fastest progress, you have a situation where all those individual leaders are stepping up from their individual pursuits and are finding the space to build relationships and have some very difficult discussions and debates because, we all come at this from different perspectives, and ultimately work kind of in partnership with students and families to kind of co-create a vision for here's where we want to go, and to work together to figure out how can we all row in the same direction to get to that vision, rather than just working almost at cross purposes sometimes. So I guess it's that journey that's led me to think like the real key to progress is to develop collective leadership ultimately, which means lots of people around the whole ecosystem, but with the relationships and the muscle to actually work together.
Thank you. I really took away the partnership angle that you brought in. And the last 5 days has seen educators, leaders from different parts of the country, parents, students, teachers, fellows, alumni come together and really think about what will it take to shift the needle for every child in India. And before you leave us, any words of advice, any suggestions that you could give us, given our scale and size in India, what do you think we will need to shift the needle for every child to get to their fullest potential?
Yeah. And I think that maybe you've even seen some of this there in India, but I think again, back to the beginning of this journey, where first we started seeing growing numbers of classrooms where we were seeing that something transformational is possible. Like it is possible to provide kids with the kind of education that really puts them on a different trajectory. And I know I've seen classrooms like that in India. But sometimes there's skepticism about, can you do that on a level of a whole school? And what I've seen over time, and what I think you've also seen in India, is yes, it's possible. You know, you think about what the I Teach schools are doing and what I've seen in other school networks around the world. Like, it is actually possible to have whole schools that put whole buildings full of kids on a really different trajectory. And so then people ask, but is it possible at a whole community level? And even to that question, I've started seeing evidence that it is possible. Like, I've seen whole communities that people had given up on, where you're seeing really meaningful progress in terms of growing numbers of kids on a path to graduating from secondary education, from post-secondary education, finding their ways to meaningful careers. And so what we've come together, I mean, across Teach for All, as some of you know, we came together maybe 5 years ago almost now to say, like, what are we all working on together? Like, what are we trying to accomplish by 25 years from now? And the vision that we set was to say, we will get to the point where we have whole communities in every part of the world showing us what's possible. Whole communities where we see all children can have the education, support, and opportunity to shape a better future for themselves and all of us. So when I think about, like, looking out at the Teach for India community, you all have led on so much over these last 10 years. I mean, the level of influence Teach for India has had on our global community in terms of, you know, fueling people's sense of possibility, in terms of showing the power of student leadership, in helping people understand the nature of kind of student partnership between students and adults that will actually take us forward. Like, you've changed the conversation across our global network, and I'm just betting on you all to show us what's possible as it relates to reaching this vision. Like, I know that some of those communities will be there in India, showing us truly at a whole community level it's possible. And I think to get there, it's just all about, it is all about collective leadership. And I know you all have it among yourselves, among the students, their parents, you yourselves. So I think it's so much about stepping back with each other and making the space to reflect on really what are we trying to accomplish, and continuing to come together and pull up from individual pursuits to say, what more do we need to do to reach that end?
Thank you, Wendy. The sense of possibility is what keeps us all connected, I feel, and the compassion and love we bring to the work we do, because I think, like you said, we really believe that it's possible to do for building full of children, communities full of children, and we must do it, because the next few years is going to be so critical for each of our children growing up in poverty to see what a good education, an excellent one, can move their life's potential. And thank you for starting this wonderful work and joining us, and this little nugget of inspiration that you were able to provide. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I'm just really quickly thinking back even to your initial question about what's kept me going in this moment. And I think partly it's like the inspiration from all of you, and partly it's just knowing that, you know, this era has, of course, magnified and amplified the challenges that the students and communities we work in face, but it's also knowing that a crisis really does create new opportunities, and I'm seeing the new possibilities everywhere I look. And I know it's just a question of, will we find our way to the new possibilities that can actually just completely accelerate progress? Like, I actually do believe there's such a demand now, even much more than before, to reimagine education. We've seen so many new possible pathways with technology and otherwise to reimagine education. And we've also seen just the incredible power of connecting across borders to accelerate progress. So all to say, you know, there's so many reasons to be, you know, there's so much right now in the world and so many challenges, but there are also such possibilities. And I'm just sending lots of love and care to all of you across Teach for India, because I know you'll find your way to those possibilities, and you'll contribute so much inspiration back to our global network. So just sending lots of good wishes for all that you'll do there in your own country, and all you'll, I know, contribute back to the world.
Thank you very, very much, and stay safe yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.